reconstruction projects. The new plan will ask disaster-affected local governments to pay up to 3.3% of the cost of some reconstruction projects. The reconstruction agency says Iwate, Miyagi, and Fukushima prefectures will be asked to pay about 22 billion yen under the new funding framework. Taking into account local requests, the national government will continue to pay for the construction of coastal roads and tidal embankments. Reconstruction Minister Wataru Takeshita says prefectures and municipalities will be asked to pay their share, adding that the plan had to avoid delays in the projects. Miyagi Governor Yoshihiro Murai says he thinks the minimum local demands have been met. He says he's grateful for the national government's effort to do its part despite its difficult fiscal position. In Yamada Town, Iwate Prefecture, 1,700 households are still living in temporary housing. Government funding for the bus services for residents of temporary housing units is set to end next March, but the new plan says the funding will be extended for 5 years. This road connects Morioka and Miyako cities. Iwate Prefecture has repeatedly asked the national government to pay the full cost of rebuilding the road. The local governments may not be able to avoid shouldering the burden. The remaining construction will cost about 120 billion yen, but no government funding has been approved. Local governments will be asked to pay an additional 1.7 billion yen for this and some other projects. Is the director of the Reconstruction Bureau of Iwate Prefecture. He says it is regrettable that the government has virtually decided to ask local governments to pay their share. He says the prefecture will have to consider ways to secure the financial resources. The government will decide the new funding framework at next week's meeting of the panel on post-disaster reconstruction.
Threatens the world economy is coming to a critical point. The finance ministers of the Eurozone nations will meet shortly to discuss a bailout plan for Greece. The deadline for Greece to repay its debt to the International Monetary Fund is June 30th. Without a deal at the meeting, Greece is set to default on its repayment. Financial markets are showing some worries about a possible Greek default. 10-year Greek national bonds are being sold as yields are surging this week. Ayako Sera of Mitsui Sumitomo Trust Bank says the market is demanding high yields, which suggests concerns over a default are increasing. On the Tokyo Stock Exchange today, a wide range of issues were sold out of concerns over the Greek situation. The Nikkei 225 stock average fell below the 20,000 yen mark for the first time in a month. The finance ministers of 19 nations of the Eurozone will meet in Luxembourg from 10 p.m. Japan time to discuss a possible Greek bailout. Administration under Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras that was inaugurated in January is sharply at odds with the European Union over the assistance plan. Greece is refusing to accept stringent fiscal controls over the millions of cash strapped. Tsipras says the EU is trying to enforce fiscal restraint. Greece should never bend under pressure or threats. Germany is providing providing the largest portion of Greece's financial assistance. German Chancellor Angela Merkel maintains that the fiscal restraint must stay if loans are to be extended. Merkel says Germany's efforts are directed to Greece remaining in the Eurozone. She says that if the political leaders in Greece show the will, an agreement is still possible.
Drei Institutionen immer noch.
Greece has been said to be in fiscal trouble many times, but this time the country is facing a very serious crisis. Greece is now facing a deadline to repay as much as 1.5 billion euros of debt to the International Monetary Fund by the end of the month. But Greece's national coffers are almost empty, and it will be very difficult for the country to repay the debt by itself. Greece hopes to receive loans of 7.2 billion euros from members of the European Union and other countries. But creditor nations have frozen their loans temporarily. The finance ministers are meeting to discuss whether to resume them. Why were the loans frozen? Till now, EU nations and the IMF have extended loans to Greece over the past 5 years worth 240 billion euros. Greece implemented tight budget policies for fiscal rehabilitation, such as cutting the number and pensions of public servants. But when the Tsipras administration came into office in January, things changed. They opposed stringent budget policies, saying the Greek people endure them any longer. They demanded a loosening of the more loans. Germany, which provides the largest assistance, reacted sharply to Greece's change of stance. Other countries did as well. They demanded Greece carry out structural reform and froze their loans of 7.2 billion euros. If no agreement is reached at this week's meeting, the current conditions will continue, and Greece will be headed toward a default on repayment of its debts. There is also the possibility the country will exit the Eurozone. If Greece defaults, it will shake financial markets and throw the European economy into confusion. How will this affect Japan? Even if Greece defaults on its debts, it is generally assumed this won't directly affect Japanese financial institutions because they hold very few Greek national bonds. But if Greece should leave the Eurozone, the euro will lose. This will encourage investors to buy the yen or the euro on foreign exchange markets out of concerns over confusion in the European economy. If the value of the yen against the euro rises quickly, this will have a significant impact on Japanese corporations trading with Europe or operating in Europe. This may affect the Japanese economy. Mitsui Sumitomo Trust's Sarah says a higher yen or cheaper euro will be a big negative factor, especially for exporters. She says it will limit corporate activity in Europe, extent, and the possibility of some negative impact